Alright boys, we're doing a quick rundown of Pangea the Nation overall. Early Age. This is Early Age Pangea. Age of Revelry. Alright, a couple quick things to look at. Stealthy troops. We're going to focus a lot on that. Magical tunes. Those are weird, difficult to use. I'll show you. Good priests in the form of these Dryad mothers. They have Awe, Priest level 2, and Seduction. Very important for the strategy that I like to employ with them. Pans, no religion, no priest, but they attract these Maenads that we'll be able to use as chaff later on in the game, just to draw arrow fire and keep them off us. Satyr commanders, I don't like them. I don't think they're that good. Harpies, amazing scouts, very important to use. And overall, we're looking at these: the Centaur Hierophant and the Centauride Hierophantide. Anytime you see the eyed, it just means the female version. We're dealing with, you know, a female with a short bow that's more accurate and less damage versus a male with less accurate, more damage. Actually, in the commander version, they're the same accuracy. The male version's just better. Whereas the archers down here, you get the male with 12-15, you get the female with 13-12. So it's either way. In my personal opinion, if you look at the cost, the ongoing cost for one of these archers, that's too much. That's almost 2 gold per month, per turn, per archer. And if you know the game of archery, the name of the game is numbers. You want a lot of archers, and these are not the cheapest archers you can get, so I tend to stay away from them. Overall, you have good thugs. These are really good thugs. Throw something quick on them, like a frost brand, and they can take out low province defense. I don't like to thug pans. They're too expensive. And here's another thing about pans. That is an unbelievably high upkeep cost. So we've got to work on figuring out if transformation can help us out with that. So we'll take a look at that in a little bit. Other than that, the basic troops. These harpies, terrible in combat, but they're really good for messing up enemy buffing timing. So what I like to do is throw these into an army and have them hold an attack rear and just mess up the mages in the back. Sometimes even just attack rear, depending on how fast they're trying to get out buffs. These satyr sneaks, these guys are great, and here's why. Stealthy 60. See, that's a key, because if you look at every other stealth unit, it's 40, none, 40. Come and look at these, 40. Even your white centaurs are only 40. But if you get a bunch of satyr sneaks and you get yourself a Dryad mother, you've got a 60-65 army that you can just plant in the enemy lands. And as soon as you see their armies pass by, go swipe lands behind them. It's a good way to cut troops off when they're trying to retreat from a big battle that you have, a pitched battle between your armies and theirs. So keep in mind the satyr sneaks are the only ones with that low, or that really high stealth. They have terrible morale, but, you know, they cause unrest, but that's going to happen. Revelers are great for fighting, however. If you need something cheap that can fight, these guys are undisciplined, but they have Berserker 3. A lot of people overlook this. And they have 2 attacks. So whenever you see, like, Berserker 3, you have to remember that increases attack, strength, protection, and reduces defense. These guys really have terrible defense at 9, but they have 14 on both attacks and 18 and 15 on their damages. You have to remember that, and 10 protection. So they're not a great unit, but they have 2 attacks, and that's always a good thing when you're jumping on people, especially if you use them to come in, cause unrest in the enemy provinces, stir up a little bit of unrest, and then take over provinces as they move around. The primary thing we're going to focus on, however, I like the Centaur Warriors. They don't have a Javelin, so they're easier to depend on, and they have the Berserker +3. If you look at the female version, they do not have Berserker. They have Javelins, which is great if you're worried about expansion, but Pangea has no problem with expansion regardless. We're worried about late game, mid and late game. So these are the guys we're going to focus on more, the Centaur Warriors, because they're only 5 gold more, 24 per year versus 28 per year. Not that big of a difference. And Minotaurs are a trap. Minotaurs are expensive. Expensive gold per year, expensive gold up front. Decent hit points, but not anything to notice. And they're looking pretty useless as of right now. So when you're looking at Centaur Warriors, these are the preferred troops that I have for holding the front lines. They berserk, they're dependable, good magic resist, good protection when they do berserk, because that goes up to 12. And then you can buff it further with barkskin, and we'll get stats on that later for you, and good damage, whereas the alternates are just not high enough damage to justify the costs. Minotaurs, you can do some tricky things with Minotaurs. For example, if you're research. Where is that spell? Is it enchantment? Enlarge. There it is. Area of effect 1. Enlarges minotaurs. You can make your minotaurs size 5, which is okay. And they can trample over quite a few units, including some chariots. So there's a niche strategy for them, but I really wouldn't focus on it too much. I would primarily focus on your white centaurs early, and then later on when you need to fill in the numbers, the centaur warriors. Those seem to be the best. That's our basic nation rundown. Now we're going to go a little more into detail about why and how you're doing the early game, because this basically tells you everything you need to know. It's not too complicated. Going over our pretender design for this example of a game, we chose the Archmage, just one of the low 1 Dominion choices that we have. And we basically went high fire, high air, high nature, and high blood. This opens up a lot of items in blood that you need if you really do want to go blood. I did not strategize around going blood late, just because I feel like for new players that's too difficult of a concept to jump into with a nation that can be this straightforward. You can play Pangea all sorts of ways. But high fire is good, gives us options, and it gives us attack skill, bless. High swiftness, high air for swiftness, and for our primary strategy, I like to play with the Dark Skies global late game because it makes our Dryads extremely good at seduction, which helps us out a lot. I took 2 points in Earth, but you could instead take 2 points in Astral or 2 points in Death. These 2-point paths are all flexible. You can flex them around or whatever. I just don't like to choose Astral because it opens you up to like Mind Burn and things that otherwise can't destroy you. Nature 5 isn't really necessary. I just, you need some for the poison resist. So you could switch this with one of the other ones if you prefer to go into Death. That's a really powerful path. You could go 5 Death, 2 Nature instead, that sort of thing. These 5 and 2s are pretty flexible as long as you have the blood and the air at least 4. It's pretty flexible. So don't worry too specifically about this. You don't really need a Hell Bless for your white centaurs. They're really good as is. But I like to get the attack skill and the blood surge. These two combined make your white centaurs extremely murderous, and they slaughter people. And with the Turmoil 3, Sloth 2 setup, and the 6 Dominion, you can still get 6 white centaurs on turn 1 if you're in a decent starting province. Growth, obviously necessary for Pangea, as you need those forests. And when your home province increases your growth up to 5, it will slowly turn plains into forests. It'll actually change the terrain for you, which benefits you in a huge way. Luck, anytime you're going this much turmoil, you need to go luck. Just because otherwise you're going to be getting crippled by the random events. And I went with positive magic because this again helps with seduction. I have a really big stealth-based strategy wrapped around Pangea because although they have strong units, their units tend to be a little more bulky, awkward, and expensive compared to everybody else. So I tend not to go pure armies, pure military, because if you did that, you'd have to go minotaurs, and then you're going to run out of money. You're going to run into a lot of problems, especially with this kind of Dominion setup with all the minus. And you're not going to have your god until the 3rd year. That's when the Dark Skies Bless and the Dryad spam comes in. So let's give it a shot. I'll show you the thinking behind this type of god setup, pretender setup, because with Pangea, it's super, super flexible. Like I said, you could switch any of these 5s and 2s except for the air and the blood around as you wish. And you'll be able to go in any direction you want. You'll see Pangea is very flexible. All right, boys, just wanted to show a quick cost breakdown of early age Pangea's sacred costs. So a lot of times when I take full Turmoil, like I have, and full Sloth, you might be worried like, oh, perhaps we won't have enough to get enough sacreds, but I can easily get, on turn 1, 6 sacreds, missing just, and this is with no provinces conquered. And we still have plenty of recruitment points. So I wouldn't worry too much about the cost in terms of Turmoil for recruitment points, because we're getting minus, what is it, 30%? Yeah, and we're still able to get it fairly easily. So it's just one thing not to worry about. All right, here we go with early expansion on early age Pangea. What I'm going to do on turn 1 is I'm going to prophetize either the Minotaur or the reason for prophetizing the Harpy is because it spreads your Dominion extremely well, and it's very flexible. This game, I'm going to go with really simple strategies, not too detailed. I'm just going to take the Harpy, send it off on a standard scout, prophetize the Minotaur. I'll show you guys exactly what we're doing with that. Recruitment, try to get the cheaper Dryad, because really the difference is 1 nature versus 2 nature and a random path. And early game, you don't need that. What you need is this right here to make sure your white centaurs are up and running. You could also go with a Hierophant or a Hierophantide. They have 20 hit points, 23 hit points versus 11. That might be a good strategy as well if you prefer to save a little bit of money, because they're only 68 per euro. These are like 90, I think, 104. So what we'll do is we'll do the more simple strategy. What we'll do is we'll stick to the Dryad so she has the larger bless to make sure she hits the centaurs more battle. So I'll run through a couple of turns and get you guys some recordings of battles. All right, after our first turn, we have our basic battle setup. Not great, but our prophetized Minotaur will be standing a decent amount behind the Satyr Warriors and the Satyr Javelinists. I'll just call them that, the regular Satyrs. They have a Javelin. I like to put them alone. They'll just throw it at anything. Hold and attack is the one right in front of the Minotaur. And then we'll have the white centaurs on hold and attack rear, because they're going to get blessed and they're going to charge off and massacre everything. Go for the most expensive province you see, as long as it's not heavy cab or something that'll sneak by and snipe your Minotaur. Run out, and we're grabbing this one because we see it's 121 gold, only 22 resources, but we don't care. We're going to snipe that one. We're going to knock it out. And if you're recruiting, see, in this case, I didn't have enough for another Dryad. Obviously, they're expensive. On turn 2, I like to get another Black Harpy, or 2 if you have the resources for it. We happen to not on this map, but you really need to maximize getting your white centaurs on these early turns if you have as heavy of a bless as I do right now. Because you can see that's a pretty big investment. So we're going to grab 6 more, and then we'll see what happens. We're going to go for early research groups, Alteration 3, and that gets us barkskin. If you look under Alteration level 3, we get barkskin, which is area of effect 1. Gives natural protection +7 up to 10. That will give our guys a lot more durability, and durability is something we really want to bank on, because remember, people, this is a trap. If you get a white centaur and you build up defense, this defense gets tanked by your Berserk. So you're really working with a 14 defense. Don't go for some elfy defense strategy with these guys. Go for damage and then buff that protection when you get a chance, because this gets knocked up to 10, and we'll see what that total protection is here in a moment. All right, let's see what happens in our first battle with our prophetized Minotaur. Nothing too tanky. The advantage is these archers existing and these commanders being behind them is a good sign. That means we are going to get our white centaurs going a little crazy on them. And you can see when they're prophetized, or when they're blessed, that is some good stats. Now let's see what happens when they get into battle and we see 1 or 2 of them berserk a little, get blood surge. Let's see. Just with blood surge, we have 18, 20, 18, 17, 11, 19. I'm only prioritizing this one because we can't reach it from our home province. Now, turn 2, we want to put these centaurs on, put the Dryad in the very back, put the centaurs on in front of the Dryad, hold and attack rear. Let's give her the other random satyrs that are just going to hang out back here and hopefully protect her. Make sure we're recruiting these. Cut that out. Do we have enough for one of those? Nope, but we have enough for one of these ordinary javelinists, or we can grab a warrior. The only good thing about the warriors is the fact that they can hold formations. So let's grab one and let's send our beautiful harpies out to go poking around, because we really need to take advantage of that stealth. All right, boys, here we go. We found an example of a white centaur that actually berserked with blood surge. So I wanted to show you the final stats. The reason these guys are so killy. Yes, he has been thumped and it hurts, but now he's got protection of 12. And if you end up putting barkskin on him, I think that goes up to 16 or 17. And his defense tanked all the way to 16. Even with the bless bonus, the blood surge, he's still dropping his defense quite a bit. But look at those attack stats. 21, 21, 23, 20. That is solid. Now, the javelins I don't pay too much attention to, but they are still pretty damaging javelins. But that is what makes them so killy. This was our battle with our small Dryad army. So back here we just have a Dryad, a couple normal satyrs. And as you can see, they're going to get plinked, but our centaurs are going to make quick work of the back line. And that's pretty much it. They sniped the commander. This was our prophet, the Minotaur. A little more fancy formational work here, but hardly. Pangea isn't exactly known for super complex line formations. See, as you can see, 50 leadership, 75, 50, 50, 50, 50, 100. Pan is the only one who can do line formations anyway, so don't focus around them too much. All right, we've got another example of early expansion. I'm just going to show, this will be my final example of how easy it is to expand. I'm assuming all of these are going to go well. Oh no, this is our other expansion party where this random Hierophant, we just had him cast his level 1 Bless and jammed all the centaurs back there with him. And then we told him to fire and keep distance. And watch how easy this is. This is even against a few heavy cav. And now the centaurs are getting back here with their extreme damage, just knocking them out. It's too hard for the indies to deal with. Let's see the second battle. This is our Dryad one. There we go. Same thing with the Dryad. They're just a little more useful in research and later. Look at that speed. Whoop, right past everybody. Yeah, no chance. No chance. Let's go to the third battle, see how we're doing. And this is only turn 3, I believe. 3 or 4. Oh, this is... Okay, so this is one that has... I remember this one has devils, so I put a couple on guard commander for my Minotaur, just so he didn't get sniped out. They made the mistake of going in the front, but that pulled the centaurs over, so now the centaurs are fighting their way through the Ganas and Pasachas, or however you pronounce that. So we'll see how this goes. Thankfully we have our prophet back here annihilating people. There we go. Had enough power to pull it through. There we go. There's a few more examples, and this was only... Alright guys, here we have a quick little tip. So the thing I was saying earlier about Pangea not needing to spend a lot of money, this is why. You can see we cast Grow Fortress. All we did was we got one of our Dryad armies here last turn to build a lab, and we brought our Pan over, who can cast natively this Grow Fortress spell, which gives us a full-blown castle. So if you look at, like, you know, your home base, you're obviously going to have a lot more administration, recruitment point bonuses. But this is the exact same. So if you look, this is just a castle that only costs you 35 nature gems. 18 provinces. We're sitting at 18 provinces, and that's with our cap circle being against a wall of the map. So we're looking pretty solid in this one. We haven't suffered any losses. We've just been killing. We have multiple military groups, 1, 2, 3 expansion parties already. We have an extra fortification, which can now pump out pans repeatedly. And now what we're going to get to next is how to survive all of this into the end game, because this starts getting expensive. You'll see this number going up as you're producing pans in your home base, and you're producing pans in this one. And I just built a lab here, so now I'm going to send my pan over there to build another castle, and then probably another one here, another one here, another one here. Give myself a nice little wall of fortifications so I can continue producing these monster troops that I can make for myself. So once we get big armies, remember, Pangea is an early nation, so we really want to be cranking these out, taking our military and just going and stomping. We see Calum, that looks like a good first target for stomping somebody. Just going to give a quick rundown on research, things you want to look for, spells that stand out. Under Conjuration, Howl, great for castle sieges. Under Alteration, you have a whole bunch. You have Barkskin primarily. The thing you're looking for is Group Barkskin or Barkskin. Barkskin is only AoE 1, Group Barkskin is 3+. So your pans will be able to spam people with this. Greatly increases your survivability. And the most important thing in Alteration is this one that you want to rush for, Mother Oak. You definitely need to cast this as soon as possible in the game so you can take over. Now, when you go into Enchantment, you're looking for Regeneration right here. Level 3. Group regeneration is nice as well, but that's level 5. That's kind of a bit of a luxury. And if you're looking at Thaumaturgy, you specifically want to be looking here for Dark Skies for the trick I told you guys about. Lowering enemy morale makes your seduction attempts more effective. If you get those going on and you look at Conjuration, you'll realize under Conjuration you have a ton of useful summons you can use to just spam people with attacks. For example, this. I had a random sieged fort. I just spammed one turn of summons, and we got all of these bad boys. Just animals, Maenads, praying mantises, not sure how to say that, and they just swarm and stomp while we're stomping everybody with poison and doing everything else. So it's pretty straightforward. The whole Turmoil thing is a very effective strategy with Pangea. But the key is that quick expansion early and getting yourself strong for the late game. All right, here we go, guys. I finally managed to catch a white centaur with Berserk and barkskin up, and that gives them a good 18 protection. So just keep in mind, when you get barkskin on these guys, they are tanky, but then you need to be careful for fire damage. So be very cautious. This is also... All right, here we are with an example of us getting murdered by Kalem's commander. They brought their god out to attack my little army of, I don't know, 5 or 6 troops with just a Dryad leading it. But I'm going to show you what makes the Dryad so strong as a leader. Here it is. Cast Blessing, personal barkskin. Somebody missed randomly. Start spamming Tune of Fear, because a lot of these flying troops, a large army came after our small army, but a lot of these flying troops lifted off and landed right on our Dryad. Now, sometimes you might feel like you got screwed a little bit there. Well, that stuff happens, but take a look at what this looks like. What happens here? Blessing, here we go. Their troops fly, and boom, they're here, right? So we've got these 5 weak little satyr warriors defending us. We don't stand much of a chance. Whereas they've got ethereal super troops running around, stomping on them, right? So this should be dead immediately. But she starts spamming Tune of Fear, and Tune of Fear lowers their morale quite a bit, because the Tune of Fear is spamming something that lowers morale. Affected by fear, affected by fear, affected by fear, affected by fear. 25 AoE. But then look at this. Negated attack with awe. Over and over and over, negated attacks. Until they finally got her. So even an extremely outnumbered managed to negate enough attacks to make this fight cause them some problems. So you can see that that stuff late game can cause a lot of problems for the enemy when they're trying to snipe your commanders. Alright guys, I've got an example of a late game spell you need to jump into when you have Pangea. Alright, we're going to lose this battle, I believe. But once you get a Dryad Mother, so you can see, let me find one. Here's one. Dryad Mother that rolled water. As you can see, they roll 1 random. If they roll 1 water, I mean, if you get really lucky and get a water and another nature, you can do it without a booster. But otherwise, what you do is you throw one of these thistle maces on, which you research through construction 5, and it gives you +1 nature magic. You throw 1 on this person, so they have 3 nature and 1 water, and then you have them cast Foul Vapors. Here it is right here. Give them a gem or 2, well, technically 3. And they'll be able to cast it under-leveled. So right now, if you have, for example, if you have a Dryad Mother and you give her a Nature 1 booster, she'll go up to 3, and then in order to cast a level 4 Foul Vapors spell, all you need is to have an extra gem. So if you give her 3 gems, she'll be able to drop Foul Vapors. And I wanted to show you guys just I mean, I put a tiny army in here, 20 troops, against a freaking 200 barbarian thing. It wasn't going to go well. But you can see we slaughtered a whole ton of them, and the reason for that is the constant poison checks across the battlefield. So, fairly quick cast time. There we go. We put Foul Vapors down, and now you can see the poison everywhere. Now just look at the amount of damage in this top left. Popping up. Barbarian take 1 point, 2 point, 1 point, 2 point of damage from the lingering poison. You can see all the damage that's happening to the barbarians right here when the poison's ticking. And the poison ticking also can set off the Berserk on your centaurs, which is beneficial. It can also make the barbarians Berserk, which may not be beneficial when you're against 200 of them. But you'll see how much damage it's doing when they're just walking around. With only 20 troops, you know, 200 barbs is going to slaughter me pretty quickly. But you can see it's starting to get some of them to rout, because all the little damage continually casts morale. But now look, after the battle, look what happens. Dink, 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 against human players instead of just AI, like random independents like this. It will snipe commanders like this, and it will destroy a ton of their primary troops. So try it out when you get a chance. Alright guys, another late game trick with Pangea. This is a fairly simple one, but it's a spell called Howl under Conjuration. I think it's level 5. Now we have just a bunch of Maenads here, kind of useless, and a couple commanders against this sieging army. They were pretty tough. They took out our defense and a couple other things, but they've been getting beaten up. But I'll show you why Howl is effective when you cast it here. He's casting Howl now. And once he casts Howl, you'll see a little globe pop up here. There we go. Wolves will come from all directions and attack from behind. And here's the beauty of it, is when you cast that, these little commanders back here, because you know, Maenads versus decent troops are not going to last very long. But now we've got see all these wolves. Little wolf here, little wolf here, little wolf here. And they're not super powerful. These commanders back here will lose their focus on the battle, and they'll start turning to defend themselves, see? And they're starting to protect themselves, so it messes up mage formation and timing, spells. It can screw up buff timings. Now, see, they can kill him, but now he hasn't done anything to buff these guys for a while now, and now the wolves are just chasing him out of there. So Howl's a pretty easy spell to cast. Only costs 3 nature, so all of your guys can cast it. All of your pans can cast it, and some of your dryads. So just throw some nature gems on them and watch them. This especially helps in castle battles. If you ever get stuck in castle sieges and you can't ever penetrate the siege, cast Howl a couple times and watch what happens. Dryad assassination attempt. I switched it over to blood poisoning spamming to see if it would stack, and it seems to stack indeed. Remember last time we had 2 damage per turn, and then it went to 1 damage per turn, and the guy out-healed it for a while. Now we've hit him twice with it. So now they're starting to take a little more, 5 damage per turn, 4 damage per turn. Pretty consistent. Now we ran into a Master Lich, which turned out to be a problem because this was not our swarm caster. We poisoned this monster, and this monster eventually failed its morale check and ran away. Didn't go well, but if you remember, some of our dryads we have casting Swarm Dryad would have won this and killed their god. Alright guys, this is the final example of the Dryad annoyance. You can see how effective of assassins they are. Failed to seduce a druid, killed him. Failed to seduce a druid, killed him. Failed to seduce a priest, killed him. Failed to seduce a druid, killed him. Failed to seduce a priest, killed him. Same thing. Still didn't even get caught. Just keep on sneaking them in. And then the higher your dominion gets, the more successful you're going to be. If you keep preaching, you're eventually going to get your dominion lower and lower and lower for them. Maverny, this game, was spamming temples, so I'm not surprised it didn't work early on very well. But the thing is, they're such effective assassins, even if it doesn't work immediately, they seem to survive and get away with it. Alright guys, I almost forgot, but I did a mass transformation because we know our pans are super expensive to maintain, so I had a bunch of pans and dryads cast transformation just to see what we would get. And a couple of them you see went wrong and their mind was seriously damaged. Let's see that command. Feeble-minded, little foul spawn, right? But the rest of them, Kara, that's obviously not a pan. Aigion, I think that would be a pan. Let's go check him out. What is he? Blue dragon? Yeah. Ice Drake. Still maintained his magic spells, and he got water. But here's the key. 0 gold upkeep. So when we're casting this transformation spell, it is benefiting us in a big way, and it's only 8 nature gems. That's really powerful, especially since we're running luck. Let's check out a couple more of them. Check out this commander, Kara. This was one of the Dryad, the Greater Dryads. Now look, now it's a tough Greater Dryad that can cast the same spells. It's got one that's much more tough. It's much more powerful now, and it's got some air magic. Gives you some diversity. One of them turned into a crocodile, so this was a pan turned into a crocodile. Maintained the same magic. We got the Great Hawk. Now you have one flying around, a pan flying around. Bog Beast, and again, all free. We got a mini Hydra. That's nice. See what happens if our Pretender casts. Ah, Polymorph Immune. Can't do it. Alright, so we've got most of them transform. And look, out of all these, we got all of these. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 casters cast it in our +2 luck dominion. And we only had 1 failure. 1 failure out of 13 is a great turnover. Let's see what the last... Nothing went wrong. She's got another dragon. Got another Great Hawk. Oh, we got one that went wrong. And we got 1 lioness. So see, that is one powerful thing you can do to reduce your cost. So if you actually spam this out, it can save you a lot of money. Try it out in your game. And again, guys, even with Pangea, you really don't ever need to run a Hellbless.